All right, CNT125 IP phone lab. We just got done configuring our VLANs on our switch. We're now going to move over to the router and do the kind of the basic config. We're going to need to do sub-interfaces, one for each VLAN, and then we're going to need to do DHCP for at least the PC and the phone VLAN. So we're going to do that config in this podcast. So the first part reminds us about creating the sub-interfaces. So on the router, let's console into this guy. First thing we're going to do is we do need to put a name on this guy. So config T, we need host name, and I'll say voice over IP. I'll do RTR for router. We now need to turn on the Fast Ethernet 00 interface. That's the one we're using. And then go in and start creating these sub-interfaces. So interface, INT is short for interface. Fast Ethernet 0/0. We're going to say no IP address, and we're going to say no shutdown, and that port is at least on. We will exit. Now we'll create the sub-interfaces, one for each VLAN, and put the details on there, put the config on there. So interface Fast Ethernet 0/0.1 for VLAN 1. Again, this is short for interface. FA is short for Fast Ethernet. Okay, so I can shorten up my config a little bit. I will then put a description on, and I'm just going to say this is router interface for admin VLAN 1. Okay, just kind of shorten it up there a little bit. We need the encapsulation .1Q1 for VLAN 1. Now I can plug the IP address on. We'll use our map. We need 0.1 here. So 172.16.0.1 followed by my subnet mask. Let me make that a little wider so we can see the whole command. There we go. And then we're going to say exit. And we're now going to repeat that same process for the other two sub-interfaces. We'll say interface Fast Ethernet 0/0.10 for VLAN 10. We'll say description. We want this to be router interface for PC VLAN 10. We'll do the encapsulation .1Q10 for VLAN 10. IP address on this guy 172.16.64.1. Exit. And now I'm going to use the up arrow for Fast Ethernet 0/0.20 for VLAN 20. Okay. And we'll do our description on this guy again. This is router interface for PC. No, this is our voice VLAN, voice VLAN 20. Okay. Now we'll do our encapsulation .1Q20 for VLAN 20. Now I'll do my IP address. I'm using the up arrow here, and I'll edit this to 128.1. So what I'll do now is I'll do a show run, and I'm just going to verify, do these look correct? I'm looking for one, admin VLAN 1, .1Q1. Notice it throws native behind because that is the native, admin VLAN, if you will. And 172.16.0.1. Now, if any of these pieces were wrong, I just go back into this interface. I have to use that interface name, and I repeat the command, like the IP address, and it overwrites what's there. So I can, gotta hear pop-ups. I can fix that pretty easily. I'm looking at 10, VLAN 10 encapsulation .1Q10, 64.1. 20, .1Q20, 128.1. I'm making sure all of those look okay, and they do. So I can now move on to, I'll scroll down here, my DHCP config. This is the first piece of real new config that you'll do on the router here. We did a little bit with stacking the VLANs on the switch, but here's a new piece on this one. We need two DHCP scopes, one for the PCs and one for the phones. So what I have here is I do the excluded, I hold back the addresses, then I create the DHCP pool and all the specifications that go in it. So first thing we'll do, config T, we want to do IP DHCP excluded address, and I'm going to plug my first range in, 172.16. I'll go to my map here, 172.16, 64.1 to 64.10. 64.1 to 172.16, 64.10. And that is creating a range is what it's doing. You would think you put a dash in there, but just kind of pretend that that space is our dash. We're saying 64.1 to 64.10, hold all of those back. Now I will actually create the DHCP scope. That was just holding back the addresses. I'll say IP DHCP pool, and I'll call it PC. I can put any name that I want there. I'll then specify the network, 172.16.64.0, okay, network 64.0, followed by the subnet mask. I'll then specify the default router address. What address will the PC use to get out of this network? So it'll be that subinterface address, 64.1. The subinterface address for that network, 64.1. 64.1, this address right there. I now need the DNS. We're just going to plug in 8888. That's Google's DNS. We're not actually going to try to connect to anything outside of our network today, but this is just kind of a piece that we normally include. As we do DHCP later in later networks, we will be connecting through out to the internet, if you will. So this will give us the DNS that we need. I'll plug that in, and now I need this option 150. So option 150 IP is going to be the address of my phone, where I have my phone configuration. In this case, it's that router subinterface. On other networks, it might actually be the address of the phone server. Okay, 172.16.128.1. Enter. And now I will do exit. So if I take a look at this, what I'll see is there's my excludeds first, and then here's the PC pool with the network, the default router, and that option 150. Again, I double check if anything's wrong. I just plug this first line in and redo whatever command this here is not correct with the correct IP or name or whatever, and it'll overwrite what's there. But I just need to start with this right here. Start with that exact line. Okay, start with that exact line, and then I'll get into that scope. I'm going to repeat this process for the voice VLAN. So IP DHCP excluded 172.16.128.1 to 172.16.128.10. I'll say IP DHCP pool. We want this to be voice. Network 172.16.128.0 followed by the subnet mask. We need the default router, 172.16.128.1, that subinterface address, 128.1. Notice I'm not plugging a subnet mask or anything back here. Okay, if I plug another number in here, it's going to confuse it. It needs to know the address of the router, nothing else. How am I going to get out of this network? So don't plug anything else behind there. We need DNS, 8888, that's Google's DNS, and then we need the option 150 IP, 172.16.128.1, the address of the subinterface, that IP phone subinterface. Exit, I will do a show run, and I'll see the next line of excludeds pops in right here. And then I'm looking at my pool here, and I'm checking all my numbers, 172.16.128.0, 172.16.128.1, 172.16.128.1. Okay, and if any of these numbers are wrong, again, go back into this IP DHCP pool voice exactly as it's here, and then I can repeat the line that's incorrect with the correct information, and it'll overwrite what's there. Okay, that's the easy way to fix that. Alrighty, now I can do my copy, run, start, and my router config, my basic router config so far is done. We will come back in the next podcast and do our base telephony config.